This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by Newegg. Whether you're buying buying a new computer or upgrading an existing one, or even building an all-new one, Newegg has everything you need to make that possible. Whether you're looking for a new power supply, motherboard, processor, RAM, or likely the wrist rest that we talked about earlier, you can find all of it at Newegg, and they have daily deals. There's usually a storage deal and a monitor deal. Actually, right now they've got an okay deal on a LG monitor. But the deals change every day, and the best way to find those deals and all the products that they offer is to go to pilchpoint.live/Newegg. So I know that while PLUGHITZ Live has focused on security for the first 2 months of the year, Avram, you have had an interesting first couple of months with Raspberry Pi.
Yes, that's my focus for this year. So we will talk about nothing else for the rest of the year, okay? But I promise to vary it up by bringing different Raspberry Pis on the show instead of always bringing the same one. So it's become a big thing for us now at Tom's Hardware. We're getting the articles that we've done on Raspberry Pi are doing really well, and we also, I also got to meet and interview Eben Upton, who is the head of Raspberry Pi, and we took note that that March 1st. It was the 7th anniversary of the Raspberry Pi. Not only was it the 7th anniversary, but according to the Raspberry Pi Foundation, which runs Raspberry Pi, sometime in February, they passed the 25 million mark in sales, which makes this one of the most popular computers of all time. Although, I should note that 25 million is inclusive of all Raspberry Pi models.
Right.
So that's everywhere from the 1B, which was the first one that came out in 2012, to the 3B Plus, which is today's flagship. Anyway, it's an impressive run, and we have some numbers too to talk about. By the numbers, there have been there are 2 Raspberry Pis right now on the International Space Station. They are called AstroPis because they have been specially equipped to be a little more durable for space, and they have the sensor hat on them, and kids can actually go and submit programs to be run on them, and they will be run on the International Space Station. So they've been there since 2015, but supposedly they got an update a couple in 2017 or 18. Anyway, so the AstroPis, you can actually learn more about how you or classroom students could submit their code to the program at astro-pi.org. So the 5 EOL products. The Pi Foundation never end of life, tries to never end of life anything. So in their history, they've only end of lifed a couple of things. Even so, you can still buy really super old model Raspberry Pis, like Raspberry Pi 1A Plus and 1B Plus, just in case somebody wants them. In case you're a company or something, you've been making products based on them or something like that. Now, if you're a regular person who just wants to get started with Raspberry Pi, do not buy anything below the 3B Plus, 3A Plus, or 0W. Those are the best. Those are the current models to get. But they don't end of life stuff if they can help it. 9 grams. This Raspberry Pi 0W I hold in my hand, my favorite kind of Raspberry Pi because it's so small and cheap. You can get it for $5 at Micro Center. Weighs just 9 grams. So really, really lightweight. And as we mentioned in a prior segment, yes, if you got somebody to try to plug their thing in here to charge it, you could turn this probably into a hacking station if you wanted to. But it's more fun to turn it. It's more fun to use the pins on these for other things like building your own robot, building your own lights. The project my son and I have really done the most work on so far is building our retro arcade machine, which is done, which has all the like crazy arcade buttons and the old arcade stick. And we were able to do that with a Pi 3B. So, it's a lot of fun. There have been 15 different Pi models that came out, like I said, but wow. The ones that most people listening here should get are if you want the top of the line, and it's like $30 to $35, although you usually want to buy them in a kit, so you get the power, you get the USB power supply and maybe a case and all that stuff. But you want the 3B plus, or the 3A plus, which is a little bit cheaper and has half the RAM and a little smaller, or my personal fave, the 0W. The $35. $35 is the MSRP of the 3B plus, and is interesting because that was the MSRP of the original Pi 1B, and the Raspberry Pi Foundation strives to not raise their top of the line model above $35 US, even though $35 today is the equivalent. $35 in 2012 is really the equivalent of $38 today. So even with inflation, they are still giving you faster, better computers for the same price. 40 GPIO pins. These are the most important things about any Raspberry Pi, in my opinion, because yes, you could use these as a computer, and you can use them, and you could like surf the web and whatever runs a very robust version of Linux called Raspbian. But the real fun is to do things that you wouldn't do with your PC. So you can connect lights, motors, sensors to these things, and you can program them in Python, and you can create all kinds of little gadgets with it. And that's where the real fun is with Raspberry Pi. And that's why over 250,000 kids every week take part in Raspberry Pi competitions, clubs, or other programs, according to the Pi Foundation.
Wow.
So this has been a really big. This is a really big, big trend. I really recommend to people who haven't had the fun of like learning about and playing with this stuff to get a Raspberry Pi and give it a try. We are going to be we have a bunch of articles about Raspberry Pi on Tom's Hardware, but we're going to be putting up some beginner articles this week to help people get started, although we're hardly the first to do that. There's a lot of great resources out there for people to learn. And, the real, you don't get to no matter how geeky you are, no matter how much money you have, you're probably not rebuilding your PC every week or every month. But with Raspberry Pi, you can build new projects all the time. It's fun to do with your kids. And, there's just there's even some practical things you can do, doing things like creating a retro gaming system for yourself, or, a security camera you can build with it, robots that move things. It's definitely, there's a lot of useful uses for these things. And I really recommend people check them out. Obviously, there's a lot of sites that sell Raspberry Pi. If you live near a micro center in the U.S., and there's like 20 of those, that is the best place to go. You got to go there in person, because in the store they sell them cheaper than any place else. Like you can buy this one for $5, and normally online it's a lot more, so it's a little bit more. But anyway, that's my spiel. We'll get back to some other stuff next time. But I have to say, for those who haven't tried it yet, really, it's a lot of fun, and everybody who's into computers should own a Raspberry Pi.
And okay, so how many did you say they just hit?
25 million.
25 million. And when you take into consideration that the intention was not to build a product.
Yes. So the story behind it, by the way, is that for those who didn't know it, Eben Upton, the guy who founded Raspberry Pi, was a professor at Cambridge University, found that not enough students were applying for computer science. They weren't getting as many applications as they wanted. So he thought, oh, there's just not enough kids who have computers that they can like really hack and play around with. So let's try to come up with a really inexpensive computer that is good for that. But as soon as people started learning about it, there was a huge contingency. He thought that maybe they would make 1,000 of them, and that would be the entire run forever. But once they saw the demand for it, and the demand wasn't just primarily kids, it was adult makers, they realized they had to mass produce them, and the rest is history. But yeah, originally they intended to only make 1,000 of these because the only goal was to get more people in the UK to apply to Cambridge University. Not more people to study computer science in general, more people to apply to Cambridge University's computer science program. So they've obviously exceeded that goal tremendously. I do understand that Cambridge now has more computer science students. Whether the Raspberry Pi is responsible for all the applicants, I don't know.
It's such an interesting origin story to go from maybe we'll put out 1,000 of them to they just hit 25 million.
Yeah. It seems a little strange that you would go through all that effort just to increase the number of just to get a few more people to apply. Like, it seems like, you had to get it's weird, but it's wonderful because what they've created is, become a gift to the world, and not just kids, but everybody, and they have embraced it. Like, when I talk to the founder, Eben Upton, who's still in charge of developing new ones, like he's very happy that that there are a lot of serious people using it for adult stuff. And by the way, he said about half of their sales are industrial, which means there are companies putting these Raspberry Pis in products that people use or using them for, production in some way. So, these are dead serious real computers. They're not just toys.
The first time I encountered somebody who had built a product around the Raspberry Pi was at our first collision in 2015. It was fairly early in the rise of Raspberry Pi, and it was also fairly early in the rise of Airbnb. And somebody had put the two together and created a device for Airbnb managers to be able to deal with check-in and all of that at a facility without having to be there.
Yeah, there's just a lot of things you could do with it, and I just have to admit, like, the challenge of achieving new stuff with it, like, how do I figure out how to do this thing that I haven't done with it before, is the fun. Like, it's, now I'm sure there's people there's some people who are probably a little bit more experienced than me and are probably saying like, I know how to do it all. I'm just going to go and do things with it for practical reasons. And that's great too. But, when I'm trying to come up with, hey, like, my son and I have been trying to figure out how to like create an on-off button for our retro system because it doesn't naturally have one. Like, the little things like that are like, oh man, it's fun to do this.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure. All right. Well, before we wrap, where can people find all of your content?
So you can find all of our Raspberry Pi coverage at tomshardware.com, including a rumor roundup about the Raspberry Pi 4 that will probably not be coming out until 2020, but we have everything that's known about it so far. And so check it out.
Cool. Well, obviously, you know that this is a topic that I enjoy. I've got a couple of them. I got a whole box of Arduinos. I've got the maker world is something that I'm heavily involved in personally and through Amrock. So this has been a fun series of conversations.
Yep.